So, if this analysis of the nature of contemporary Islamism is correct, it leads to several interesting conclusions. First of all, the core of the jihadist or terrorist or radical Islamist problem is actually not in the Middle East. It is right here in Western Europe. Because that is the area in which the alienation and the deterritorialization is happening. Now, of course, the contemporary world is much more complex than that. In my personal opinion, the United States has now created an entirely new terrorist problem in Iraq. There's certainly an ongoing one in Afghanistan. Saudi Arabia, produces jihadists and so forth. And so it's not the case that this is that the old interpretation that this is a Middle Eastern problem is entirely wrong. There are certainly people coming out of the Middle East that are similarly alienated. But think about Mohammed Boyeri or the July 7th London bombers or Mohammed Atta, the ringleader of the September 11th attacks on the World Trade Center and the Pentagon. All of these people were radicalized in Western Europe. And in the case of the London bombers and Mohammed Boyeri, these were people that grew up in Western Europe that had full access to the democratic freedoms that Europeans enjoy. And so it builds the case that we have been thinking about this problem wrong, that somehow it's this intrusion of foreign values into a democratic Western civilization. It's much more complex than that. As I said, something a little bit more familiar. And therefore, the problem is not going to be solved by fixing the Middle East or by walling ourselves off. Obviously, if you live in a country like Holland or France, you know that you cannot wall yourself off from this problem. This is something that Americans are more likely to think about. But it also means that the American project of democratizing the Middle East is not going to solve this problem. And in fact, if it is true that the Islamism, the radical Islamism is driven by modernization and this new identity problem that's posed by moving into the modern world, it suggests that you'll actually get more of this sort of alienation with more democracy and more modernization. Now, I personally happen to believe that democracy and modernization are good things, and that they're good things in the United States they're good things for people who live in the Middle East, and that we ought to support both of those things in that part of the world just as we do in Asia or Latin America or anywhere else. But I don't think that we should think about this as a solution to the problem of jihadist terrorism. That is a problem that's going to have to be solved separately, and a lot of it is going to have to be solved here in Europe.